Thank you very much for joining us, everybody. We're joined by the new Huddersfield Town head coach Michael Duff and our sporting director Mark Cartwright. Catherine Hanna from BBC Radio League, if you want to get started for us, please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Michael. Welcome to Huddersfield Town. How big a challenge have you taken on here?
I've taken on an exciting project, I know that. I've come in fully aware of what happened last season, and but it's an opportunity to reset. I think that's the excitement of the opportunity. Having spoken to Kevin, Jake, and Mark about where they want to take the club. A lot of hard work in between, but I've had my first break in football for 30 years, so I feel everyone's ready for the end of the season. I can't wait for it to get going. So it's really excited about the whole opportunity.
Your predecessor, Andre Brighton-Wrighty, was very forthright in his criticism of the squad before he left. He talked a lot about a lack of unity, a lack of fitness, a lack of commitment from some of the players. How do you go about assessing the squad and maybe reshaping it for life in League One?
Well, I think naturally after a relegation you lose players, but I don't want to make too many snap judgments. I've been in the building less than 72 hours, so the thing, like I said, the main word that I'd work is a reset. There's been a relegation, so something's gone wrong. Whether that's happened in the last 6 months, or whether it's happened over a year-on-year decline, it's not for me to make those judgments just yet. But having the conversation we want to rebuild it. We want to pull everything back together and create a winning environment. But the key being, there's a lot of hard work in between. Even before the pre-season starts. So, the assumption is we want to get promoted next year. Make no mistake about that. But I'm fully aware that there's no give and right. I've been in this league before with some big football clubs, and we are one of those big clubs. But just because we've been relegated doesn't mean we'll get promoted. You need to implement a lot of things. Everything needs to be right. The recruitment needs to be right. The character of people need to be right. The staff need to be right. So it's all aligned to create a winning culture. And then winning games of football and promotions are a byproduct of that. So first and foremost, we need to start laying the foundations of building all those little incremental things.
The players who are here now then, does everyone start with a clean slate as far as you're concerned?
Well, there'll be bits of business that get taken out of my hands. But that's the life of football. Every season players come and go. But the key is that when we do come together, we want to give the town a football club they're proud of. We want them. Every player that comes in will need to recognise and understand the importance of the club in the town. They need to understand what you've got to do to wear the football shirt. So there's certain expectations within the football club. There's certain expectations that I expect from my players. I've talked about it before in other press conferences. Sweat on the shirt's a minimum. You need to. I think people in this area, supporters of the football club, they'll accept mistakes as long as you seem to be having a go and trying. And that was me as a player. I wasn't a particularly good player as a footballer, but I think I did okay in my career because my attitude, my mentality, and that's what we want to instill. It's easy when things aren't going right, people point fingers, people blame everybody else, it's everyone else's fault. Well, now's a chance to reset and get everybody aligned, which is the difficult part, to build a culture that hopefully get promoted, and then you kick on from there.
Do you see in the setup here at Huddersfield Town and the situation here at Huddersfield Town similarities as to when you walked through the door at Oakwell and took on the Barnsley job?
Well, obviously, yeah. It's a team that's been relegated out of the Championship. So, like I said, there's lots of knocks on the door, and some players will just assume, well, that's it, I'm off. It's not always that simple. But what we must make sure is the players that do stay and are left over are aware and understand what's expected of them this next year. So the past is the past. People's opinions, all things like that. There's obviously reasons why people come out with those things, but that's got nothing to do with me. It's moving forward. What are the expectations, and how do we achieve what we want to achieve? Because talk's cheap. Say it all the time. You can talk and talk and talk and talk. Yeah, we want to win the league. Well, how do we win the league? That's the key, is how, and that's what we've got to put those little steps in place before the players walk in the door.
And a last one for me before I ask you a couple, Mark, if that's okay. What reassurances have you had then in terms of budget and assembling a playing squad that can deliver that success, can deliver that winning culture that everyone's talking about?
Well, in terms of the excitement of the opportunity to take the job are the conversations that we've had with Kevin, Jake and Mark, and it's everyone's aligned, I think we'll be given an opportunity. In terms of numbers, I've not been given guarantees of numbers, or he'll definitely stay or he won't definitely stay. But it's putting all those places in, all those pieces in place, because I do believe if we can get it right, the infrastructure of the football club, the appetite of the owner, everybody wants to achieve, and it's an opportunity to succeed and to carry on succeeding. And I think that's the thing I'm really, really excited about, is that you can pick this up and take it a long way. But I'm fully aware that's in the distance, and if you look too far down in the future, you trip over what's in front of you. So it's having that end goal, but it's realising the processes of how you get there.
Thank you. Mark, a couple for you as well, if that's all right. Inevitably, when things don't work out at a football club, you go through relegation, there is scrutiny on everyone, yourself included. Mm-hmm. Did you at any point over the last few weeks think, my time at Huddersfield might be up here?
No, I don't think so. I think you've got to, what everybody sees is what happens on that pitch. What people don't see is the boring stuff that the sporting director is doing in the background. And don't forget, I didn't actually arrive until July, so I had no influence over a lot of things that happened last summer. And it was new, so I've been learning about the club throughout the sort of last 9 or 10 months as well, figuring out who's who, what's what, and why is it under the malaise it's been under, because it's been struggling for the last 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. So you're trying to figure all these things out whilst making decisions to influence the club. I think as I sit here right now, I could quite honestly put my hand on my heart and say we're actually in a much better place than we were last year, and that sounds completely moronic considering that we've just got relegated. But in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of what Michael's going to walk into, in terms of the ability to start and create a good environment, and this has come by making changes in the background that nobody's really seeing. We believe now that we have a lot of the right people in the right places, and we've put together a pre-season that is going to challenge the players. And Michael obviously is going to be the lead in that, but we've got a lot of games in there. We've got a pre-season trip that we're spending a lot of money to make sure that everything possible for this next season is going to be in the right place for Michael. So no, I didn't feel. I felt really upset, angry, everything that everybody else felt, but also excited because. You have the opportunity to make it right. We have the opportunity to rebuild, reset, and actually get this club back into a winning culture and have this training ground as a proper high-performing environment.
What would you say to fans then who have maybe lost faith in the club, lost faith in you, in the owner, to give them that belief back that you can turn this around from relegation and hopefully be moving back in the right way?
Well, the only way we're going to do that is by winning games of football. I think bringing Michael in at the speed we did was a sign of intent. I think Kevin, the owner, has always shown that he is willing to invest above and beyond, and also with the ability that Jake has to make changes at the ground with the staff there to make it better. You can see, even though you're probably not paying attention, in the background, Kevin has invested a hell of a lot of money into this club behind the scenes to make this better. And you can have everything flash at the front, but if there's nothing behind it, then you're never going to get anywhere. And I think that's been part of the job that we've been doing this last 10 months, is making sure the environment behind the flashy, front end of the car is actually worthwhile. It's no point buying a Ferrari and it's got a Fiat engine, so we've got to make sure that we've got the Ferrari engine as well.
Although you have to acknowledge that when Kevin first took over the club, the original conversation, the statement he put out was back to the Premier League in 3 years' time, which suddenly is looking one heck of a lot harder than when he made that statement earlier.
Look, the aspirations are still the same. This is just a blip that we've got to get over, and we've got to achieve special things now. And I think, you look at the Lutons, the Ipswiches, the Burnleys, it can be done, but we've got to create that environment to make it possible. A lot of that, like Michael said, comes down to infrastructure, it comes down to recruitment, the character of the people that are in the building, and it's not just the characters of the players, it's the characters of the staff as well. There has to be this Huddersfield DNA. If you're going to come to Huddersfield, you have to fit a certain mould, whether that's as a ticket salesperson or whether that's as your superstar striker, they have to be here with absolute desire, full commitment and wanting to play for this club.
So finally on that front then, does that mean you maybe have to rethink your approach to recruitment if there have been, as Andre Brighton-Writer clearly felt, one or two bad apples have been in this building?
It's not really changing the view on recruitment because we knew the formations and the style that we want Huddersfield to play in, which is that front foot attacking football. Do we have to rejig it? Absolutely. I think everybody can see that there are changes that are needed, and this squad have been together for 2 very difficult seasons. So there's already an answer in that. But for Michael and I, Michael has 3 very key non-negotiables to what a player has to deliver, and I think that fits into what we want to do. So between us, we're working every hour that is available at the moment to make sure that we get the right characters in.
Thus, I have to ask you, what are the 3 non-negotiables?
Well, all my teams have been built on they're fit, strong and organised. So that's what they need to understand. Yes, you want to play attacking football, you want to get in people's faces, but the foundations are fit, strong and organised. So the players, they better come in fit, and they will come in fit. And they will be fit by the end of pre-season. And that's not just physically fit, I mean mentally fit. Obviously, with the strength and conditioning and all that comes with it, mentally strong. And then organised. That's my job and the coaching staff to make them organised. And then from that platform, you can go and play good football, you can be aggressive in the press, you can get the ball in the box in certain areas of the pitch. But first and foremost, you need to build the foundations with the team, with the club, everything. And it's happened before. We did it at Barnsley. We managed to tie a club together. It was very similar. There was a disconnect between everything. Lots of players wanted to leave and all those sorts of things. But if you can get it going with this football club, this support, the infrastructure, like I said, the owner, it's an exciting times.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. We'll just come to Stephen Chicken from We Are Terriers next.
Hi, Michael.
Hi, mate.
Do you feel there is still a core of players in the squad that you're excited to work with? You feel you can work with?
I think the squad that's been left over is a good squad. Like I said, there will be changes in the next 6 or 7 weeks. Some of which you want, some of which you don't want. That's part and parcel of the business. It's ultimately having an infrastructure that if a player leaves, who's the replacement, and that's the beauty of having this time now. Doesn't mean you'll always get it right, but yeah, there's some good players left over within the squad. I think supporters can tell you that. There's been lots of reasons why what's happened to the club has happened. I don't think it's just because they were the worst team in the league, because that wasn't the case.
Do you feel, as sort of Catherine alluded to earlier, you've been sort of fully apprised of the issues that Andre Brighton-Writer highlighted, and you feel like you have a good knowledge of what you're walking into in this job?
Yeah, I've listened to the interviews, I've watched them, and Andre was quite damning in his assessment, which I understand. He was probably frustrated as much as everyone else was frustrated, but that's what happens at a football club that isn't succeeding. Everyone blames everyone. Misery loves a best mate, and it's when you're not winning every week, that's how you get little fractures in the dressing room, in the staff, because everyone blames everyone else. It's his fault, it's his fault, it's his fault. And then ultimately, after 2 or 3 years of that, you end up with the inevitable, which is a relegation. And it's important that we try and nip all those sort of agendas and different people's directions, because ultimately I'm firm believer that the 11 that are on the pitch are the most important people at the football club. Because if they're winning, everyone's winning. And if you keep winning and winning and winning, which again I understand is easy, me talk's cheap, actions mean more. But that's when the supporters see that, and if they see people running around and having a go and then winning a game, everyone starts noses pointing in the same direction again. So yeah, I think there's enough in the squad left over. I think there will be investment if we leave. I think it's a different scenario where we don't have to sell. It's not. There's no fire sale here. So if people want to buy the players, they're going to have to meet the asking price. So I think that's the support we've had from the owner. That's probably the difference between Barnsley and here. Is at Barnsley we had to sell players. We knew that. We don't have to do that here now.
Yeah. The players obviously won't be back for around, I imagine, 6 weeks or so for pre-season. Will you be speaking to them in the meantime? Will they be in for any sort of one-off meetings with you being new at the club? Or
already spoken to Already spoken to the captain just to get his take on it, because I don't want to take one person's opinion. I want to get sort of a balanced approach of not just Andre's words, but not just Mark's. I'm coming in with a fresh set of eyes, so I don't want to be influenced by one person. I want to see the lay of the land. Like I said, already spoken to Hoggy. He's got his opinion on certain things. But no, I'll have conversations with people, but he's probably not going to meet the players. They need a break.
Yeah.
Relegations are tough. You know, no matter what supporters do think it is hard, particularly in this life. You can't get away from it. You know, mental health is big in football at the minute, well, in society. But you know, when they're all on social media and things, and supporters, quite rightly, sometimes it goes over the top. But the young people never look away from the phone. You know, I've got 2 young kids, and every time you see them, they're like that. But when that's abuse constantly, sometimes it's hard. So they need to get away. But one thing they do need to realise, that the players that are coming back, make sure they come back fit.
Is it the case then of working closely with Mark and the recruitment team over the next 6 weeks or so?
Absolutely. We've already had quite a few meetings, haven't we? I'd met Lee for a couple of hours the other day, and then met him the next day for another 3 hours, just trying to build relationships, but getting an understanding of what we want, and putting lists together of, because you need contingency plans. There might be people that leave that we don't want to leave, but for whatever reasons, whether it's market value gets met or whatever, it's having, right, who's the next person? But the next people in the line need to understand it's not just a case of Lee's not a bad player, but we don't do any due diligence. I think that's the main thing that we've taken, is everybody's character needs to be right as well as being a good player.
Have you sort of come with some players in mind that you've recommended to Mark you might like to go after?
The ones that I really want are probably out of our price range at the minute. No, I've got my opinion on lots of players, and it's getting a collaborative sort of understanding. Because it can't just be, you know, Mark's opinion or my opinion, or it's a group decision, and then we pick what we think is the best player. But that's the beauty of it, is a collaborative effort. It's not just a case of, right, go and work with him. You know, I think we're all understanding of what we want comes from the owner. He wants to watch a certain type of football. I think we've all aligned to that now as well.
I think fair to say things didn't quite go to plan in your previous job. What happened there, and how do you feel? What do you think you've taken from that? You've learned from that, and can you reassure fans that it's, you know, that's not going to be an issue at Huddersfield?
Well, I think on reflection, it was an opportunity that I thought was a good. Ultimately, it didn't work for Swans. It didn't work for me. I don't think you have to be a rocket science to work that. It just wasn't a great fit.
Yeah.
Brilliant football club, lovely part of the world. Supporters are really passionate about their team, but for whatever reason, and in hindsight, should he have left Barnsley? Probably not. But we're all a lot wiser with hindsight, and that's the excitement of this opportunity. That, like I said, I feel refreshed. You learn more from failure. It's the first time I've had a break for 30 years. I've reflected. I made mistakes. Certain things didn't work out. But because of that experience, I think I'm a much better manager because of it.
Do you feel like you've got sort of more, not necessarily freedom, but more of an opportunity to put your own stamp on things, sort of, you know, and that you've got better alignment with Mark on what is required and desired in terms of playing style, etc.?
Yeah, I think we're fully aware that, you know, like I said, I think I know what the owner wants, which we're aligned to that. I know what the supporters in the area, the demographic of the local people expect, because I've been in this area, I've lived in this area, so I'm fully aware of what we want to put together. It's not always, like I said, I'm fully aware that this is a first press conference and it's just words.
Yeah.
And it takes time to build trust, but we're of an understanding and got an opportunity, because we're in so early, to try and build something.
Thank you, Michael. Mark, how big an overhaul are we expecting at the moment in terms of the playing squad?
Well, that will depend on the marketplace as well. I would say there's certain players that naturally come to the end of the lifespan at the club contractually.
Yeah.
And then there's another group that haven't actually sort of touched the first team this year. You don't need to be carrying too many players. I know the B team model was here, that has sort of heavily over inflated the squad. So there'll be players there that just aren't going to touch the first team that we need to move on as well. Then of course you've got the players that will think that they want to go, and their agents are telling them they want to go because they need some more agents fees because everything's been slashed in half because we've been relegated. So there's going to be a natural churn. There's obviously people that we're going to want to change and move around. So it'll be, listen, I'm not going to say we're going to do this huge overhaul. We are going to do an overhaul as much as we possibly can. Michael's been in the situation before, and up until the deadline closes, every player is going to think they're still a championship player until that closes, and we have to deal with that situation all the way through. And we will have benchmarks that says, if somebody offers me 20 million for Stephen Chicken, then we're going to accept that.
Because definitely accept that.
Yeah,
I'll definitely accept that.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. But what I can say is we had already spoken with Kevin and Jake, and we already had a certain amount of first team players that we wanted to bring in. So the budget was already in place for that. So that hasn't changed. So we are expecting to bring players in and at the same time trying to overhaul and move players out.
It might be a case then of you try and start the window, bringing in as many of those as you can, and then maybe as the summer progresses, it's then waiting to see what the outs are before you sort of get more in?
Yeah, listen, in an ideal world, we've got as many people out by the start of pre-season, as many people in, because Michael on that first day of pre-season needs the bulk of his squad there to start working with. It's the further you get into pre-season, the less they're up to the fitness levels that Michael wants or the tactical knowledge that Michael wants. But I think we've already spoken about 2 or 3 people that we're trying to move forward on. So yeah, it could be a case that 2 or 3 come in, and then it'll be 1 in, 1 out, 1 in, 1 out, or 2 out, 1 in. It depends how the market goes. But the market is starting to move, so these things are happening. We're having daily updates with what is going on with the conversations that are being had. So it'll become pretty apparent soon, I think.
Okay. I appreciate you won't want to make any promises, but you're hopeful that you will be able to get something done in the coming weeks?
Oh, we want to, 100% we want to. Like I say, if you're going to bring 6 new players in, you want to get them, as many of them there for the start of pre-season. So there's a lot of work to be done, but we're definitely up for that challenge.
You talked a bit about sort of the infrastructural changes that have been made behind the scenes. I think fans, I think probably were a bit underwhelmed by last summer's business. January, I think some of the signings, we looked good, but we didn't get to see much of them because of injuries and so on. Do you feel you're in a position, though, to improve on what we saw last summer and build on January?
Oh, 100%. Listen, last summer was difficult in terms of recruitment and what we could and couldn't do. And then January, January is a very difficult market because you're normally getting players that haven't played a lot, or if they have played, they've had a lengthy break before they come into you. And unfortunately, if you haven't played a lot, or if you've had a break and then you're suddenly thrown into the cut and thrust of the championship, there's every chance you're going to break down. So you're trying to build them up, but we weren't in a position where you could build them up gradually over week by week by week. We literally had to throw people in because we needed to see results. And obviously the likes of Reece and Radinho got significant injuries, and that was because of the situation we were in. January's a month where you should only really be tweaking the squad with 1 or 2. We had to bring in 5 if you include Brodie coming back, and that's major changes. For that, that shows you that there's issues going on that you've got to try and change. So that's it. But I think you'll see with a proper pre-season, we'll see the best of these players moving forward. So obviously Alex Matos has gone back, so he'll be shame to see him, because he did give everything in the shirt. He did want to do that, and it's more people like that we're going to bring in.
I'll ask you about the man sitting next to you now, since that's what we're really here for. What qualities do you see in Michael that made him such an attractive prospect to the club?
I think the character of Michael is exemplary. Spoke to a lot of people, about that. I think he did a lot of due diligence on Michael in the way he played and the sort of character he is, and like I said before about the non-negotiables, these are things that resonate with us, resonated with me, Jake and Kevin, and as we look to put things in place in the background, then we have to have that type of character. We have to have a proper leader at the helm. And I think if you go back through Michael's career, if you speak to people like Sean Dyche, that's exactly what Michael is. He's a real leader, and he can give that to the group, and that's what we need at the moment. We need leaders, we need leadership to steer the ship in the right direction.
Thank you both.
Cheers, Stephen. We'll just go to Leon Wobshaw now from the Yorkshire Post.
Good to see you again, Michael. You were on high alert when you went to Barnsley. Is it a similar sort of situation here with the players, obviously on the back of a relegation?
I think you always are on high alert when you first walk into a football club. Like I said, you don't want to be influenced by other people's opinions. You want to make your own assessments. You want to gather as much information as you can, but you want to watch the players. You want to see what they really want. Like I said, talk is cheap. You can have a conversation with a player over the phone. You could be saying what you want, get off the phone and go and talk to his agent and said, well, didn't mean a word of that. So, yeah, I think it's a term that I probably did use when I first went in at Barnsley. It's similar sort of circumstances. It's who wants to be here, who doesn't, who do we think can move us forward with us. And it's not just a case of a player goes, well, I don't want to be here, so you've got to sell me. That isn't the case. It's, like I said, there isn't a fire sale here. So I think you're always on high alert in my job, because the moment you switch off, you're out the door pretty quick. I've just discovered that. So it's probably two good words actually, and the players need to have that understanding as well. They don't come in thinking you're just going to mosey onto the league. It doesn't happen.
You were at two clubs for basically about 25 years, wasn't it, in Burnley and Cheltenham? A lot of stability, and I suppose coming to Huddersfield, does that give you the stability behind the scenes that you maybe never had at Barnsley? Is it fair to say?
Well, like I said, in hindsight, I probably made a mistake. It's the first time I jumped early, and it was a mistake.
Yeah.
So 12 months down the line, and you learn from your mistakes. But the excitement of this opportunity is, I think it's a chance to reset. I want to build something. I want to build a football club with the help of the owners and Jake and Mark, and the infrastructure is already here. Like I said, I'm probably repeating myself in terms of the appetite of the owner. He's not. A lot of owners walk away at this moment. Well, I've spent a few quid. We've been relegated. I live in California. I'll just walk away and go and spend my money elsewhere. He hasn't done that. In the conversations that I have with him, he's probably hungrier than ever. He's obviously a successful bloke. You don't get to where he is without being successful. So that's part of the attraction. That's part of the excitement of getting going. I'm fully aware, like I said, the players need a rest. I don't. I'm ready to go.
Building that culture as well, Michael. That's something that you've been very successful at before. That's something that's important and you've excelled at before. Well, I think
you walk into any sort of high performance environment, whether it's sport, whether it's firemen, whether it's pilots. I just spent a day with the Olympic boxing team, and it's the same thing. It's a buzzword culture, but it's easy talking about it. Getting it is the hard part. But I think I played at Burnley for a long time, and the one thing that they had there is a world class environment. Didn't have great players, with respect, but it was a byproduct of the environment. I went to a much smaller club, and we created that same thing and started winning games. Same thing happened at Barnsley. So it's can you instill that, and can you, so it's not a flash in the pan. Like you said, you need a bit of substance behind the results. And I've said it before, and Leon, you've heard this a million times. Saturday at 3 o'clock is a window into your working week. So that's when the supporters see, well, what you're actually doing during the week. And if you're doing it properly often enough, the result looks after itself. If you're just cutting corners and you're just getting by and you've got little clicks all over the place, it gets exposed at 3 o'clock on a Saturday. So that's the bit that we need to realise. It's the day-to-day, hour-to-hour habits that all come together on Saturday. Should be the easiest day of the week. Yeah,
and there's a purpose coming in early now. I think you came in at Barnsley mid-June, you're coming now in mid-May. I suppose planning pre-season, you're going to be at it from day one behind the scenes, aren't you?
Yeah, like I said, everyone else is ready for a break bar me. But that's good. I know what I'm working with. I've got an idea of what the squad might look like.
Yeah.
Like I said, we've got contingency plans, and just trying to sort of immerse myself in it as much as I can. So we are ready, because one thing I don't want to do is make excuse if the results aren't going right in September, October. I don't want to be looking back at this going, oh well, you said you were going to do this. It's everything I do. So I've had success and I've had failures in my career, as a player, as a manager. The one thing it's never been down to a failure, it's never been through lack of hard work. So I can always put my head on the pillow and go, well, it didn't work out at Swansea. That wasn't through lack of hard work. It wasn't because I was trying to cut corners. I thought I'd made it. I'm still as hungry as ever. I'm still as driven as ever. The people I'm now working for are exactly the same.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important that the players that are coming in have that same drive and ambition, not just, I'll just go now because we've been relegated. It doesn't work like that.
It was a strong division the last time you managed it at this level, and it looks like it could well be next year as well. There's going to be some serious players in there.
Yeah, I think I keep jumping in this league when it's really tough. But I think the three teams that have come down, Birmingham is obviously a huge football club. Ourselves, Rotherham are always competitive in this league, and with Steve Evans, he will make them competitive. And the three teams that have already come up out of League Two are financially backed. Wrexham, everyone knows the Wrexham story, so it's going to be a tough league, and that's the beauty of my experience at this level is my first game at Barnsley, we went down to Plymouth, who were in League Two a couple of years before. Our players thought, we were in the Championship last year, we'll wipe the floor with these. We got absolutely murdered, and it was a brilliant wake-up call. And it's trying to get the players to understand that just because we've got the biggest stadium, one of the biggest stadiums, just because we'll have some of the biggest crowds, just because some of our players will get paid more than maybe some other players in the league, there's no God-given right to win a game of football. You need to turn up mentally, physically prepared to give everything to win a game, because it's not easy to win a game.
How have you found your time out of it then? You mentioned 30 years in it and everything, and then suddenly you're sort of out of it. It's a bit of a culture shock, but sort of knowing you a little bit, you're someone who probably refresh on your skills, that sort of thing, after your bit of a rest.
No, I've loved it, if I'm being honest. I didn't think I would. I was upset and angry when you get the sack, because it's the first time it's happened to me. But it's, as a player in the summer, you still got to keep fit, so you're still working. As a manager, you never turn off. So it was nice to be able to get up when I wanted to. Like I said, been away on holiday, been into a couple of different clubs. The frustrating part was the one time I can play golf whenever I want. It's been the wettest winter in history, and we have 3 days of sun and then Mark rings. But yeah, I just feel energised, feel just ready to go. And as much as you don't think you are, the amount of people that said to me the last 2 or 3 months, "God, you look well." And you're like, God, how bad must I have looked at the end of Swansea? You don't realise, you can't see it because you're submerging yourself in it. So yeah, I think energised is probably the best word, and excited.
But Christmas was weird, wasn't it?
That was great. I could drink as much as I want.
I'm going to ask you, Mark, it just looks a natural fit. You've obviously known Michael a good while. He looks like he ticks every box that this club could wish to have, really.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think Michael's the right fit. And I think we can both agree on that. I think Michael's absolutely right. He's I can see a re-energised Michael in front of me now, and I think that's, given that we need to re-energise this club, I think that's absolutely perfect. So I think it's great to be able to sit and have the head of recruitment just having the conversations, and there's already alignment on those lists. There's also insight where Michael has already had that player or seen that player or knows that player, and it's a straight no, technically fine, or not this or not that. So I think it's the right fit, right time, and I'm really looking forward to sort of working with Michael for a long time.
Coming in early as well, that was obviously.
Yeah, no, listen, that's it's imperative. I think when Andre was leaving, we knew that this had to be done as quickly as possible, and I think that's where we moved quickly, because we've got a lot to do, and there's elements of me actually trying to keep him out the building so that other people don't have to come into the building because they've had a long season. So I think it's enjoyable to have an enthusiastic manager as well that is here and he's ready and he's keen to work, and we've got a lot of rebuilding to do, and we're fully aligned.
And building something, hopefully in the medium to long term. There's been a lot of managers here, and that does need to change, doesn't it?
No, we need to be stable. We have to be stable, and I think that's one of the beauties with Michael is that he's got the experience and knowledge of the league. He's also had successes, and when we spoke recently, and the reflections on the failures, I think are also important for everybody. You have to be able to reflect because you will learn from that, and we're all doing that as we go through life. But no, 100%. We want stability. Stability, breeds success and helps you build success. So that would be the plan moving forward.
Yeah. Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers, Liam. We'll just come to Paul Longden from BBC Local.
Michael, welcome. I think you've been a bit hard on yourself saying it was a mistake going to Swansea. It turned out that way. But how hungry are you still to prove yourself as a manager at Championship level after what happened there?
Well, I'm hoping that 19 games doesn't define me. Ups and downs. So I don't think it's not a case I have to prove people wrong. I've always had that drive inside anyway. I've had relegations as a player, but I had more promotions than I did relegations, and ultimately that's what I want to end up as a manager. I haven't been relegated yet, but it's the learning curve. It's a steep one, and the Championship's a tough league. It's an unforgiving league, but like I said, for whatever reasons, it wasn't a good fit for either party. That happens. That's part of your learning. I just believe that I'm at the right football club right here, right now.
I've spent a lot of time, like all Huddersfield Town watchers, wondering where it all started to go wrong during last season. Forgive me for doing that, but it's a natural reaction, I think, to a relegation situation. Can you remember what the team was like to coach against? I seem to remember your last Swansea match was actually against Huddersfield Town. What were they like? Did you see a vulnerability?
I think at the time we knew it was going to be a clash of styles in terms of, I think at the time, with Darren, they're sitting in a 5-4-1 in a deep block, and we conceded a goal quite early from an own goal, and I think we had 80% of the ball then, but never really looked like scoring. But a lot of managers have changed, the teams have changed. Football moves quickly, so I'm not really one for looking in the past. So I've reflected. That's what the 5 months has been on what mistakes I made. Mistakes my staff made, how I'd do certain things differently, and speaking to other people, and all those learnings. So I take it as a real positive in the end. I didn't at the time. Like I said, you're frustrated and angry because certain things didn't go certain ways, but hopefully Huddersfield see the benefit of that.
It's 12 years since Huddersfield Town were last in League One. I've spent a fair bit of time over the last few weeks reminding fans how fun it can be. It is watchable, in my opinion, but what do you think the differences are objectively between Championship football and League One football?
I think physicality is a lot of it. I think there's the one thing in the Championship to League One, and there's leagues within leagues in this one. So in the Championship, other than the parachute payment teams, I don't think who's the small team in the league. Whereas in this league there are big boys, of which we're one of them, and there are smaller ones who've got completely different objectives. In the Championship, probably, I would imagine there'll be 18 teams thinking they can get in the playoffs at the start of the season. It's not like that in this league. But there'll still be 10 teams thinking they can get in the top 6. And there'll always be a surprise package, because there always is. So, it's making sure that the players, like I said, it's making them aware that just because you play in a big stadium and in front of a big crowd, there's no entitlement. So, and they'll get told that, because I've seen it. It took Sunderland 2 or 3 years, took Derby a couple of years, took Ipswich you look at what Ipswich have just done. But they didn't get relegated and bounced straight back. They needed that reset, and it doesn't instantly mean, right, you're going to win the league the next year. That's what we want to do. Make no mistake, that's what we want to do. But it doesn't just happen. It's constant work and constant application and building all those little, like I said, those little incremental things to achieve the ultimate success. But talk's cheap, so we need to make sure that we're ready to implement all those things.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
you very much, Paul. We'll come to Arif Ahmed from ITV Canada.
Hi Michael, good to see you again. You touched about the ambition of the owners and about how a few clubs, if they don't get up straight away, can struggle in that league. So how important is it for Huddersfield not to languish in League One for too long?
Well, it's obviously important, but I'm not really interested in other teams or anything. Our focus is it's pretty tunnel vision. But like I said, it's just making sure there's no complacency within it. So everyone will be pumping really, really hard to try and to get out of the league as quickly as possible. But what we need to do whilst we're doing that is build a winning culture and an environment that if and when you do go up, you're ready to go again. It's not a case of, right, let's just sign a load of 32-year-olds who will get us promoted, but then next year you need a total rebuild again because they're all past their sell-by. But it's getting a balance of the two, and they're the sort of things we're putting together now. Yes, you need a blend of experience and youth, and then you need some players in their prime, because what we want to do is you want to get that promotion. And I'm loath to talk about it too much because I realise how much hard work's in between. But that is the focus. But it's to go on again, and that's why this reset moment is such an important time.
And you touched on during your break, you've been at other clubs, GB Boxing. What was the idea behind that? Just see how other clubs do, how other sports learn, and what you can take from them?
So that I'll keep painting the house. No, I want to learn. You can never know everything. That's why the staff are so important. You know, I can't always be right. Pep Guardiola isn't always right. He's the best manager in the world, but he's not always right. So it's having that staff that you can trust, that will challenge you. But ultimately, we walk out the door and we all row the same direction. Going into different cultures, I've always done it. You know, I've gone into the Red Arrows, been into the work with the Marines. Outside the British boxing, so Lauren Price was there 2 weeks ago. She just won a world title, so it's amazing watching her, talking to her coaches, how she works, watching her train. I wouldn't want to take a dig off her, I know that. But yeah, just something that really interests me, because you know, it's not just 5 months and put your feet up for 5 months and wait for the phone to ring. I've spoken to quite a few clubs in the time, but I consciously wanted to take an amount of time off to have that freshness and that break, and I needed to make sure that the next one was the right one after my learnings from my last job, making sure the fit was right, if that's so to speak. And
just before you were announced as Huddersfield Town manager, there's a lot of rumours of going back to Barnsley. Is there any truth in that, or was it just rumours?
I've spoken to numerous clubs, so
Was Barnsley one of them?
It's not fair to talk about other clubs. It's because like I said, I've probably spoken to 8 or 9 clubs. So obviously because of the locality of it, but it's not fair on anyone. So spoke to the clubs, felt this was the right one. That's why I absolutely jumped at the opportunity once we had conversations and talks with the powers to be.
Thanks. Mark, just one for you if possible. How important is this appointment for the hierarchy of Huddersfield Town, with the last 2 not lasting here very long?
Well, I mean, it's as we're talking about the reset, the rebuild, creating a new culture, winning environment, I think this one is hugely important, because stability breeds those things, and we're very conscious that this has to be absolutely spot on. Now, there's never 100% guarantee that's going to happen, as we've seen before, certainly this season. But I think we keep going on about it. But it was we genuinely felt, everybody that sat down and spoke with Michael, that this was the right time and this was the right fit, and we will give everything we can to make sure that Michael's time here is successful. And if Michael's successful and the club is successful, then the stability comes naturally, doesn't it? So that's the aim, and that's the excitement from all of us, that we have this opportunity now to bring that excitement back and to bring some stability and some success.
Thanks, good luck.
Thank you.
Sorry, we'll just come to Stephen Downs from the West Yorkshire Football Show.
Nice to meet Michael, and hi Mark.
No, you're right.
Michael, just from my point of view, we've seen a lot of difference over the last year and pretty much over the last 5 years of this football club. A lot of managers, or some of the managers, have had better connections with supporters than other managers. How important is it for you you've said that you've lived in the area, you kind of know what the fans are expecting, you know, very similar sort of environment to what you had at Barnsley, but how do you create that connection with fans as much as just winning games, but, you know, how important is it to you to have that connection?
Well, I think one of the most important things, I need to give the supporters a team they're proud of. And we know the ingredients that takes in terms of passion, energy, desire. Sweat on the shirt is probably the best way I can describe it as. That's what they want to see. So we want to give them that and win. That's the holy grail. That all those things come together, because I think they can handle if you get beat as long as they seem to be having a go. So the ultimate aim is if you can really pull it together and the connection. Like I said, that Barnes is probably a good example in terms of we got clapped off the pitch having lost at Wembley because they could see the players give it. We played 75 minutes with 10 men in the boiling heat and got beat in the last 2 seconds of the game. So that's what we want. That's what we want to create. That's what me and Mark and the recruitment team have got to make the players that do come in. Hopefully the supporters will see the effort that the players are coming in and the organisation. That's on me. And then you win enough games, it builds that momentum, because one thing it does, when the supporters turn up in the numbers here, I've been here before, I've been beat here before, when they're winning, it starts bouncing, and that's what we want. We want the feel-good factor back in the club. And again, I realise there've been lots of managers in the last few years, and they've probably all said the same things as I have. So I'm fully aware that, you know, actions speak louder than words, but that's what we want to get to. I understand the local people. I lived in Yorkshire for 6 years of my life. I've been at a Yorkshire club. It's very similar to Burnley. So I think I know what they want. Delivering it is what I've got to do.
And when you look at the squad, and obviously you've done, I'm sure, a lot of research about, you know, even before deciding to come to the football club, but there's a lot of young players here, and you had seemingly very success at Barnsley with a lot of young players. Do you think that's something that you're good at doing, turning young players mentally around, being able to look at things differently from, right, you've just been relegated, but, you know, now we need to go again, and we need to get this football club into a position where it wants to be and in the right direction? And sometimes for younger players that can be harder, I suppose, than maybe your older head professionals.
Well, I retired at 38, and I think you're always learning. So my job, not just as a manager, as a head coach, is to unlock potential in young people. Everyone's younger than me. All the players are younger than me, so in my opinion, they're all young people. So it's educating them. At Barnsley, that was the model. They went really, really young all the time. We'll have a more balanced squad, I think, in terms of we'll have some plus 30-year-olds, but ultimately they can still learn. Hopefully you can still teach them things, and they're at different parts of their journey. Some people are coming through, some people are at the end, some people want to stay at this level for another year, some people want to get back to the level. It doesn't matter what their motivation is, if we can show them that we're here to help them, and sometimes we'll be hard on them, but everything we do is for the right reasons. It doesn't mean you need to mollycoddle them. It doesn't mean you need to hammer them all the time. It's learning the individual and learning what it takes to unlock the potential. And sometimes that might be an 18-year-old kid. You just want to give him a career in League Two, because he might not be good enough to League One or the Championship. But as long as he unlocks, that's his level, and he gets to League Two, you've done your job. You might have a 19-year-old that is Premier League potential. Well, your job is to unlock that potential. And it's not just football either. You're trying to educate these people into trying to protect them. Like I said, social media and sort of mental health. They're all babies basically. You know, I've got 2 kids, and you want to do the best by your kids and give them every opportunity. That's all we're trying to do with young people, whilst winning football games.
And obviously with the academy that's been built here at the club as well, you know, rebuilding that academy, is that something that you will personally look at as well, you know, speak to the coaches within the academy and maybe take a look at? Yeah,
like I said, I'll be up here. I'll be up here a lot. So when I'm up here, I'm fully invested. So, and people can say that, you know, at Barnsley, I watched nearly every under 18s game. I watched every under 23s game. I'll go and spend time with the coaches. Go and spend time in the community, because when I'm invested, I'm invested. So you can't. This is not a job you can do half cock. It's a really, really tough job. It's a tough job because everyone else thinks they can do the job. But it's a tough job. So I'm not bright enough. I'm not good enough to think, oh, I'll be able to just do it at 40-50%. You get found out pretty quickly. So with the academy, I'll go and see what's coming through. David Prutton's already texted me that I think his lad's in the under-13, so keep an eye out for him. But yeah, I think it's really important that every supporter wants to see one of their own, but they have to be good enough. You don't want to just put players in just to get a cheap win with the supporters. If they get in the team, it's because they're good enough. But ideally, like I said, the football club to the town and the community is so important, and if you can get a couple of your own ones through, even better.
Mark, just a couple to you. Firstly, obviously, it's been your first year at the football club, and a lot's happened in that time, probably more in the last year than you could probably put in the last 10 years. I mean, how have Michael said about him reflecting on things. How have you reflected on the last year? And do you think some of the criticism towards yourself has been a bit unfair because of certain circumstances and situations that you probably didn't envisage that was going to happen in the first year?
No, I think you're right. I mean, I have probably seen more here in this last 10 months than I have in over 10 years as a sporting director. But it's all learning material. I think we did have a very in-depth conversation when Kevin flew in. We spent a lot of time with Kevin and Jake going over everything. And all, Kevin, Jake, myself, we all reflected on what could we have done better and where were things, what did we do wrong. Like Michael says, you'll always get the criticism because everybody's a pundit, everybody, sees the game through their eyes, and everybody thinks or wants to do your job. There's a lot of stuff, like I said earlier, behind the scenes that people never ever find about. They never hear about. They never hear. The big problems will make the headlines and be in the paper. But a lot of the little problems will go unnoticed, and a lot of time has been spent on a lot of little problems. It's literally you think you've put that fire out, and then another one pops up. And so I think it's reflection is it's a word that's only started probably being used a lot in the last 5 or 8 years, and when I first started doing stuff with the FA, they started talking about it and making sure people were fully aware of what it was, because a lot of people can just barrel on without even thinking about what's gone on behind. And I think we had those key meetings when Kevin came over and reflected on the whole thing and how do we move this in the right direction. Obviously Michael is one of those points, but there's a lot of other things going on that will never make the headlines, that people will never see, but they are making this club better. And I think as an owner, Kevin has a real desire to make this club better. Whether that's at the stadium, whether it's the training. He's allowing us to invest heavily into the training ground this year, on the facility. So when people come back, there's a lot of changes so that people can see progress. Again, these are the little things that people aren't seeing outside, but they're going to make a big difference to Michael and his squad because it's been freshened up probably for the first time in a long time, and we have to do these little things. So I think you learn along the way, but you also have to take that time out to sit back and go, okay, are we doing the right things here? And the beauty of it is, there's a core group of people that will pick up the phone and instantly talk to each other, and decisions can get made very quickly, and I think that helps massively.
Just two of us. One, how quickly did you have to change strategy from the decision that Andre wasn't going to stay to then having a weekend where we didn't have a manager and you had to talk to people to then bringing Michael in? How did that process think, right, we've got to change massive strategy here because we thought maybe originally Andre was going to stay and now he's decided not to, so we've got to go out and get a new person?
I think, to be fair to Andre, he spoke about he didn't know what was going to happen a few weeks in advance, so I think you always have to have a plan B, don't you? And I think so. Once the warning signs start coming out, yes, you've got to look at every environment, and I think we probably all ultimately knew that where it was going. So it was at that point you knew you had to act quickly, and the quicker that you can get the person in, the more chance you've got of succeeding, because you've got more time together, you've got more time to put everything in place. Pre-season has been built out. Is it okay? Does it suit what Michael wants, and how does he want to do it? Is there anything we need to change in there? like I said, we've invested heavily in pre-season, so we get the right results coming out of it. But so there's a lot of work that goes into it, but it was literally, we knew we had to act quickly.
And just finally, we've had a lot of players over the last sort of 2 years that have had injuries, bad injuries. Obviously some of you wouldn't have foreseen, but how important is it going forward that we have a strategy where we sign players and maybe we have, sort of an improved medical department that can, deal with injuries better, or, identify problems before they might happen. I don't know how easy that is to do, but just seemingly, obviously, injuries was spoke about last season quite a bit, and obviously the season before, and it's not really a topic that I'm sure Michael wants to speak about in every press conference.
No, I mean, listen, some injuries can be prevented through robustness and having the correct amount of fitness in the bodies, and that's the work that Michael will be doing over the pre-season. Some injuries you just can't, they're just going to happen. You can't. We do have a very good medical department, and we screen the players, so we'll know if the right leg is stronger than the left leg, and we have to build the left leg up. So we have all that in place. I think we got unlucky with, the player falls into Utah and Utah does his ligaments. We can't account for that. Nothing comes up. We scan all the players before they get in here, so nothing came up on Reece Healy to say he's going to pop his groin and be out for 8 weeks. So there's things that we are doing. So if you look at Pat Jones really struggled with his hamstring at the start of the year, and the medical team sent him to a specialist, a sort of hamstring specialist, and he came back with a different set of results which we worked on, and then he's come through. He's not had one issue since. So it's little things like that. We may do the same with Bolker because of his thighs. We may send him to the thigh specialist and just say, look, and it was with Pat. It was a middle range. We had to get him stronger because he's gone. He's got, and his twitch muscles are phenomenal, but they couldn't keep up with his body. So we had to train him in the middle range. So he wasn't at full sprint, but he was there, and that made him more robust. So we're just doing all these little things as well to make sure that these players can get through a full season. There's going to be niggles and everything else. That's normal, but we are doing everything we can. That's for sure. But we do everything. We put them through the MRI. They have full scans. We have a full report. Everything is done correctly by the medical team. I can say that.
Thanks, Mark. Good luck, Michael, at Huddersfield Town.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Stephen. We'll speak to you all soon.
It was freezing.